Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Public Works Podcast. My name is Joseph Blackman, and today we got a real treat for you. Her name is Kristina Ramirez, and she is the city engineer at the city of Harker Heights in beautiful Texas. Kristina, say what's up to everybody.
Hey y'all, how's it going?
All right, Kristina. So I know you better or more as being my district director at APWA. So I'm in Arizona, you're in Texas. I guess your not jurisdiction, your geographical location is Arizona. First off, we'll talk a little bit about you, and then we'll kind of dive into the APWA and some other things as well. So city engineer, I think most people kind of know what that is, maybe, but for those people who are outside the four walls of public works, describe a city engineer, like what your job title is, and then also, which we know is different, what you actually do as a city engineer.
Absolutely. So city engineer, the role actually is very different depending on the size of city that you are. So Harker Heights, we're about 35,000 people. So we're in the medium to small category. And so as city engineer, it's not only the capital improvements programs, but making sure that we stay in compliance with all of our water, wastewater, and roadway projects, and of course, stormwater. And then also planning for the future. So looking at all the master plans, putting those together, looking for funding sources, interacting with the public to tell them about our plans, as well as to educate them on what's going on in their neighborhood or where a project may be in the queue. The hardest thing I think about a city engineer is interacting with the public and saying, I know how important your project is, but it's a couple of years away still because of funding constraints. And, that's always a tough one, a tough conversation to have. Part of what I do also is I look at all of our developments, review those plans, how they work with our regulations, state regulations, and making sure that the quality of the home or the quality of the property that's being developed is what we want for our residents in our community. We don't want somebody to come in, develop it and leave. And then all of a sudden we're stuck with, okay, now we have repairs, or the resident has repairs, or the commercial property, and, trying to prevent some of that and giving us a long-term product that we can really call home.
I didn't know city engineers were over that. And you see like all the TikToks and, YouTube shorts of like a contractor, like the window doesn't even touch the windowsill. It's like, this is a brand new home that's like $600,000. I had no idea a city engineer was kind of on the QC of that side of the fence.
Yes, absolutely. We work really close with our building officials and our planners, and then of course consulting engineers to kind of make sure that everything comes together.
Yeah. Talk to me about CIP, which is kind of that look ahead. Like you said, like you're planning, like you're looking 3, sometimes 5 to 10 years ahead, which who knows what 10 years from now is going to look like, but you have to plan it, that far out. And then also the day-to-day operations, the stuff that you're going like, you pave that street, every other year, you got to clean that pipe every year. You got to check that lift station every 3 months, like the operations. Where does your brain go to like not always be the 10-year ahead, and then also not always be like, here's what we need to do yesterday?
So you are absolutely right when it comes to planning ahead. Capital improvement projects or our capital improvement plan, in some cases, we're looking 20 years out when it comes to pavement projects, roadway projects, looking at improvements to our wastewater plant. And so it's having that foresight to look at all the different projects and to see how they can work together. So we don't want to go through and totally repave a road and then come back through and put in a water line 2 years later. We just don't want to do that. It ruins the integrity. And then of course you got the public backlash that might come with that. And so as city engineers, we're looking at planning forward. So how do we coordinate all those such that they happen in a logical order? And when we're looking at plans, we've got a couple different things. So we're looking at our projects that are funded now. So what do we need to make sure that they are completed on time, under budget, not at budget or over, right? We always want to come in under. And making sure that those are on track, that they move forward, because that's what the public's going to see. And we want to make sure that they run smoothly, that our contractors interact with the public in a manner that's accepting in our community. And then on the short-term range, we're looking at 5 to 10 years out. Okay, what budget do we have? How can we make this work? Maybe I need to move that project over here. And so I work with finance to help plan those out to see what we can get and when. And we're looking at federal regulations too. Federal and state rules are always changing. And yeah, I don't have to tell you about that, right? And so making sure that we're staying in compliance. So a project that might have been out in year 20 now all of a sudden becomes in year 5 in order to make sure we maintain compliance. And so then what does that do for the mix of how we plan our projects out?
Wow.
And of course, there's always the funding, you know, bond programs, grant programs. When do we anticipate those? When is it going to hit our checkbook? And do we have community outreach that needs to be done? Usually about a year in advance before we go out for a bond, just to educate the public on, okay, this is why we're looking at this, and this is the benefit that you will have.
Yeah. What's like, let's say we can get a sneak peek of Kristina's your tabs on your computer, or even like your Google, with Google Alerts. Yeah, like where are you getting all this information from? The federal regulations, state regulations, you know, the whatever new grant has came out, the Infrastructure Jobs Act. Like, where do you go to find all this information from? Is it multiple websites? Is it like one person that knows everything? Like, hey, Johnny, like, where do your Google tabs you're set for?
So everybody has a different way that they organize themselves and how their brain thinks to keep track of things like that. So I do have a lot of different tabs, one with just about every federal agency that impacts our infrastructure. I also utilize our APWA government affairs a lot. If I have questions about something coming up, or they send out briefings about once a week of what's going on, man, without those, you know, I don't know if I'd be able to keep up. And then my calendar, you know, there's reminders. Hey, this grant typically comes out about this time of year, every 2 or 3 years. It's already on the calendar. That way I don't miss it. So it's a lot of different resources. We have Texas Municipal League down here, which most states you'll have a municipal league. Ours is very active. And so they have a running tab of different changes to laws, things that they're projecting that might become an issue or may become an item. And so I'm tracking those as well, so we can stay ahead of the curve.
Good. I always think, because whether it's in my personal life or even in business, there's always information I need to keep getting hit in the face with. And so like I have tabs, alerts, like you said, calendar. Like, calendar is great. Like, hey, I think this conference is at this time, which means the abstract comes out this time. And, you know, you just got to keep reminding yourself of these things that, again, like, if they don't, the federal government's not going to send an email to Kristina Ramirez and say, hey, look for this, you know? So I appreciate that. Let's talk the day in the life of Kristina Ramirez.
Okay.
So from the time you get to the office to the time you leave the office, kind of walk us through a day in the life.
Okay. So the city of Harker Heights, we're very unique. We do 4 10-hour days for our staff. I know it's very different. And so then of course we have emergency on-call for those other times, other periods. But most of the time I'm coming in and I'm checking the night before what I have going on the next day. I am following up with emails, meeting with different department heads, depending on what we have going on, visiting construction sites, depending on the day of the week. I try to group mine together because there's no way I can be everywhere all the time, right? And then, of course, meeting with our operators. I am not directly over any of our operators, but I work very closely with several of them in regards to certain projects, inspections, asking them, hey, what issues are you seeing? So it varies from day to day. And then at night, I like to close out by, before I go home, have I followed up on all my phone calls? Have I followed up on the emails to the public? Because those are very important in our community. We want to make sure that we have that communication. Yeah.
Who from the public is reaching out to Kristina Ramirez? Like, what are they asking?
Yeah, so there's a lot of times the questions revolve around drainage
Oh,
or around people that are utilizing the easements on their property. So somebody wants to come in, do a utility repair, and
yeah.
it's not a city utility. They're quick to pick up the phone and call, or they notice something like a sidewalk that's heaved, or maybe something's clogging a drainage way.
Okay.
Our public is very interactive with our staff, and it really helps us.
Is that a good
We can't,
thing or okay?
it is for us because we can't be everywhere. We're a small city. There's about 35 people in public works. That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, we can't be everywhere, and it helps us to have other eyes.
Yeah.
And I think that for us, one of the key things for the city engineer is having that communication.
Yeah.
So not only communication, putting out information, but listening. And that's a very important role to be a successful city engineer, in my opinion. And because of that, because we have such a good relationship with our public, you'll be quick to see on our social media pages, our public will step up.
Wow.
As soon as somebody comments negatively, they'll step up and say, well, have you spent time with them? Have you gone in and asked?
Wow.
This is what's going on. And it's refreshing, once you have that dialogue with the community to see that.
But that enabling the community to kind of go to combat for you, that's a testament of what you guys created internally.
Yes.
Because I would think, and the next city over, whoever, anywhere across the country, if you're not transparent, if you don't pick up the phone, like you said, if you're not out in the community, like you said, with your ears listening to their complaints, they won't go to bat for you. They'll say, "Oh, that's the government. They're behind the four walls. They don't want to know. They don't want us to know what they're doing or what they're gonna do next, or what they're doing with our dollars." And that's where you start getting the nasty comments, and it starts to snowball in a Facebook comment, section. So I commend you guys for that transparency. And then again, like when you say people go to bat for you in the comments, like that says a lot. That's a testament for sure.
Definitely. And the communication too is you could pick up the phone and answer their question with a simple yes or no, but it's what you follow up behind it. It's, oh, hey, the answer that you're seeking is no, you can't really do that, but here's the why. Or here's the history behind that, and being able to explain that to them. Because, as an engineer, interaction with people was not something that came naturally. It has developed over time. I will say that. And so, but it's so critical. And I've had a lot of great mentors along the way that have helped me realize that and helped me to develop that skill set.
Sure. Speaking of development, you're not a mushroom. You didn't pop up last night, as a city engineer. We need you to walk us through your career path. Let's start from high school all the way up until today.
So high school, I was one of those people that was into everything because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was good at math and science. I really enjoyed it. And so I started college, not sure if that was the route I wanted to go, and started in biomedical engineering, which was under chemical engineering at the school I went to. And when I got into about my third year, I decided I didn't want to be behind a desk all day, and I didn't want to be in a lab all day. And so I had been interning, or not, I guess I shouldn't use the word interning. I was a summer worker for the Department of Transportation up in Kansas. And there's a very big distinction.
Talk to me. Why can't you use intern versus...
Yeah, so an intern is a different type of position with them. And for them, it was student workers, student summer hires. And so you could be in any discipline and be able to work for the Department of Transportation as long as you interviewed well and were chosen.
And so I do internships, and they call them interns.
Yeah. But we were out there, we were taking samples. I was working behind an asphalt machine, making sure that the samples were right, the depth was right, material was good. And, concrete samples, traditional stuff for beginning engineers, right? But it was a field time. I did the field time for 4 years, even inspected some bridges a couple summers. And it was enough for me to realize I wanted a little bit of both. I liked what I was doing. I liked seeing the end result, but I knew I wanted to give just a little bit more. So I switched from chemical engineering to civil. Then I met and married a soldier. We moved to Texas.
Okay.
So there was a delay.
Yeah.
So I always, when I go out and I do my career interactions with middle school, elementary school, and even high school, I tell them, I was like, you don't necessarily have to know what you want right away. And you don't have to be on that 4-year plan.
Thank you
It
for
took me
saying that.
9 years to get through school, and I started a family, and you just have to want that drive. You know, is it for you? Is it something you want? Well, then you can make it happen. And there's people there to help you along. So I even, while I was going to school, I was a CAD drafter.
Okay.
I know somebody took a chance on me and said, yeah, sure, we'll take you in. And those two individuals at that engineering firm, they became some lifelong mentors of mine. And so that was pretty cool. They, you know, you never know who's out there, who's going to help you unless you ask.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask. They let me bring in my daughter, who then was 2, and she would play. She had a little corner in my office, and she would play, and she was quiet as could be. And they let me bring her in. And without them letting me drive 3 days a week, I drove 2 hours, 3 days a week to go finish my degree.
Wow.
And they worked with me on hours, but without them, I wouldn't be an engineer now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's always those unexpected people along the way that you don't know unless you ask.
Yeah. No,
if they
for sure.
help you. Yeah.
For sure.
Sorry, I've kind of rambled a little bit. But I was on the private side for about 10 years, did private development, but mainly it was for water supply corporations, small municipalities, helping them with their infrastructure. And then I went to the public side, government side, and was in drainage and environmental at a bigger city. And the city I'm in now, the city of Harker Heights, used to be my client when I was on the private side. And they called and said, hey, we have an opportunity for you. Wasn't looking at the time. I was like, I'll consider it. And it came over, and it's been a whirlwind. You know, and I'd like to tell everybody, you never know what direction your career is going to take. So I came over as the assistant director of public works, and within a year, I was the director of planning and development. Because an opportunity arose, and they had the faith in me, and I decided to step outside the box in an area that I really didn't know a whole lot about. And then just last year, the opportunity came for us to have our first city engineer for the city. And I did rise to that occasion and take that opportunity as well.
Wow.
So it's been a whirlwind, a lot of different steps along the way. When I tell people I started in the field behind an asphalt machine, they kind of look at me, and I was like, well, I was a different person back then. And you know, we all have to have a start somewhere. We all don't have the same start. So.
No, and that's why I asked that question, is because not all of us have the same straight path trajectory. I mean, not everybody. I know so many good people, good operators, good workers, good directors, engineers that are getting their degree still. You know, they might have had a junior college degree, AA degree, or just high school, and they're like, you know what, I want to get my bachelor's. And so, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we don't all need to go straight through high school and have a 3.8 GPA, then go to a college and have a 3.7 GPA, then graduate college and do our summer internship, then get hired on by that firm, and then work for the rest of our life. Like, it's not that straightforward. You started a family. Like, just think how many people put off, and I don't want to get into it, but just, you get what I'm saying. Like,
I do.
Yeah.
There are so many different paths, and just because you have a detour doesn't mean you still can't get there.
Sure. I love it. All right, let's talk skill sets. So let's say a youngster was in your office and they're asking you, Kristina, like, what would be the main skill set I should pick up to be a successful city engineer? What would that skill set be?
I think I mentioned it a little bit ago, and that's really communication. And so listening is a big one. You may, as an engineer, know the technical side, but you may not know the why. You may not know the physical. How does it fit together in the field? What will it take to maintain it? Okay, what are the residents really wanting in that area? Why is this so upsetting to them? or why are they asking for it?
Yeah.
And so you have to learn to be able to communicate with others, the technical side, but then be available to listening, to see, okay, how can we add something or take something away in order to make this a more feasible type project,
Yeah.
for all involved. That's really the big one, because too, as public works professionals, we don't like to tell our story often, and unfortunately,
Hence the
you
podcast.
really
Yeah.
do. Yes, yes. But unfortunately, you really do.
Yeah.
In order to be truly successful, you have to tell that story.
Yeah.
And not only does it help with projects, but it helps with developing your staff.
Mm,
So, because without telling that story, your staff may think, oh, you just were blessed and you moved like
yeah.
you indicated before, you just
Yeah.
moved along right up the chain.
Yeah.
No, I've had some ups and downs along
Yeah.
the way too. And I always tell everybody, find a mentor. That mentor may not be somebody who has a higher position than you. It may be a peer. It may be an operator who works for you that has more life experience in the field. One of the big ones that I had, he was in the military, retired from the military, and he came to work with me at my previous city. And I learned so much leadership skills from him. It's just, you don't know what you don't know. And when you start hearing it and are being told about it, it opens your mind a little bit. And you have to be willing to do that.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't taken any engineering coursework classes, none of that. But you say communication. I hear that a lot. If engineering, like, it's one thing to sit in front of some graph paper and bobbity boop boopity bop, but it's another thing to get that, like you said, kind of internally sell it, internally get people excited about it, and then externally get the community to be content with it. Do you feel like the engineering coursework prepares you for that communication aspect, or is that something that a lot of engineers are going to bump their head on along the way?
I think it's a factor of what electives you take as an engineer and how open you are to other ideas. I don't think that, at least in the time when I went to school, there wasn't anything that prepared us for those interactions with the public. They prepared us for interactions with each other, from one peer to another. And that's nothing against all the universities that I attended, but it's just sometimes you've got to go beyond that book knowledge. I think that the intent for formal education is for you to learn where those resources are and to learn the basics, the solid foundation. I think other types of education, such as the Public Works Institutes or continuing education for the various licenses, those help to round out that formal education. And that's where a lot of people nowadays are getting that ability to communicate, the ability to think outside the box, the ability to take into account, okay, well, now I need to have to learn, or, grammar was not there. But the ability to work with finance, the finance department, and be able to speak their language in order to communicate what it is you're trying to do, and then how they need to see it represented in their side. In order to make it work. And it's a little bit of learning every day. The learning never stops. You go into one scenario, and for example, I'll throw out an example. I had an instance where things did not go as well as I had planned when I was presenting a change to city council. It ended up being a 3-hour discussion. And that was with a previous entity. And I was not prepared for that. I was very much young in my engineering career and did not explain things very well. And so there was a lot of back and forth, but you can't look at that as, oh, they're coming after me. It's, oh, here's a learning opportunity. I need to do a little bit more legwork before I bring this back. And okay, what do I need to look at? What are they so against and having an issue with? Maybe it's really not an issue. Maybe it's just how I'm explaining it. And so then taking that to the next level before you bring it back.
Yeah.
to them. And so with that, I was successful. It was drainage standards down here. Drainage standards, stormwater standards
Yes.
are something that are fairly new for our area. And so it was very controversial at the time.
Really?
But it was something that was needed. Yeah. Oh,
What?
yeah. It was like 6 inches above top of curb was allowed to be carried in the roads because we don't have a lot of stormwater because it
Yeah.
hardly ever rains.
Yeah. Same
And the fact that we needed to be not pushing water onto our neighbor every time we develop concepts like that.
Yeah.
But not approaching it in a technical manner helped me the second time around, and actually going out and meeting with all of the developers, the builders, the other engineers, and listening to them rather than just saying, hey, we as a city think this is best,
Yeah.
but actually getting their input. That was early on in my career, and you know, it was a good lesson to have.
Is there like and I use this as a metaphor, like is there a situation where Kristina puts on her pantsuit, her power suit, and then has to go have a different conversation with a different person within the public works department, and has to put on a yellow vest and some jeans and boots? Do you mentally have to do that where you're talking to council, talking to engineers, and then you're maybe talking to maintenance or operators?
You definitely have to know your audience, but that just knowing your audience doesn't mean you limit how you talk to them or what it is you talk about. It may mean that I include a different perspective, knowing that that's how I can communicate with somebody or have communicated with them in the past, in order to get a point across. But I'm treating everybody the same. Everybody deserves my respect. Everybody deserves the same level of information. It's just a matter of how much time am I taking to meet with those individuals and talk about what's in the field. And I may ask the guy, I may ask the guy in the hole, you know, hey, what's going on? Is there something else that we need? Is this not working? You know, when I'm sitting here looking at the engineer's design, going, okay, I can see where he's coming from, but he needs to tell me, hey, what do you need to make this actually work?
Yeah. Okay. And I respect that. All right. I need a story from Kristina when something went wrong under your watch, what you did to fix it, and then what lessons you learned from it to apply to your future career.
So I think we just kind of covered that.
Is that the one you wanted to use? Okay. Yeah, you're talking to council. They say, whoa. And 3 hours later, you're still like, wait, what happened?
You know, at that time, that's when we developed limits for council presentations.
Oh, because of you. That was you.
Huh? It was. So I set the standard, right? I took one for the team there, and you know, and it helps. It helps to focus the conversation a little bit more, to have a little bit more of those conversations leading up to a big decision. So a lot more town hall meetings, a lot more actually going and meeting at the building association. Wow. The builders association, they're very supportive. They have a lot of educated folks that have been in the industry a long time, and sometimes they have a different perspective that we just haven't thought of as a city. And so hearing that and incorporating that into what our ultimate goal is.
Sure. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and use that one. I'd like to know what your personal and professional development regimen are like. It could be the same, it could be different, personal and professional, but I want to know what Kristina does intentionally to show up week after week, month after month, year after year, better and better.
So one of the things I learned early on is that it's nothing personal when we're talking about stuff, when we are trying to present new things or present a permit that has come forward and needs council approval. When they respond back, it's not personal. The council and other department heads, they all have their own purpose. And so when I'm presenting the facts, and if they don't particularly want to go along with that, or they feel it's not right for our community, so be it. Just don't take it personally. And that's kind of to protect my own personal, I'll call it personal mental health, right?
Sure,
is to be able to separate the two. And I think that recharging and actually not being on call 24/7 helps. I mean, we all have succession plans, and we need to trust in them. We can't be the only person all the time because, it's been said many times, everybody's replaceable. And so take that time to invest in yourself, to recharge yourself and do whatever it is that makes you recenter and refocus. For me, it's time with the family. It's time with a good book and a good cup of coffee or some hot chocolate, depending on the time of year. And professionally, though, it's constantly learning. I'm looking at the learning opportunities and what I think might round out my particular skill set, or maybe I've come across something and I'm like, I need to go back and refresh myself on that because I've hit a difficult question. And so I'm looking to take those classes, whether they're be online, in person. There's some that I believe need to be in person because you need that personal interaction, develop those relationships, and in order to have a good base to call on in times of need. Public works, there's always going to be an emergency out there. It may be a pump fail and you can't get the parts. It may be a cold spell and everything freezes, which down here in Texas is not a good thing. Or, a hurricane or something. So who are you going to call, or who are you going to rely on during those times? And I think developing those relationships with people is very critical to our industry.
Sure.
But I'm always out there looking for the next education, making sure I stay on top of things technically, but also interactions and professionally.
Yeah. The whenever I see like APWA stuff, you on LinkedIn, or even like you said, in person at these events, I see it's kind of this firefly. Everybody's attracted to your energy and your light, and I can tell that like, I got to get Kristina on the podcast. I got to get to know her. Tell the people why you joined in APWA. When you joined and kind of what you were looking for at the time, and then now with kind of your status now, what you're looking for in regards to giving back to the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a young engineer, my mentors and my bosses at the time, they asked me to look at the different, I'm trying to think of the word. Sorry, I just drew a blank. So my bosses and my mentors at the time asked me to look at the different agencies, the different entities that may be able to help us with our clients. And so I started looking at the different organizations. And when I went with my boss to attend APWA events, a meeting actually, I realized that they were more in line with the type of people that I like to be associated with. Everybody was more down home, just welcoming and willing to share their information there in person. And so that's when I decided to choose APWA over other organizations.
Sure.
Still a member of other ones, but my passion is the Public Works Association. And I think some of that is because I was able to, as I progressed in my career, bring along my staff, my crews, get them involved, get them education to better themselves. And, sometimes it starts as simple as telling them, hey, I need you to go tell your story about this project. And so they would go give a presentation, and then they're like, oh, where can I learn more? Or what else can I do or attend to learn? Because I learned a lot at that event when I spoke, and so helping them along the way. And to me, if we're not educating our staff, if we are not providing them those opportunities to better themselves or to sharpen themselves, if they do something really well, but somebody over here is doing something different, they're going to learn a little something different, and it's going to make them even better when they come back home to perform that task. And it becomes important to me that I invest in that. So I'm actually an instructor with the Texas Public Works Institute as part of giving back, right?
Yeah.
So
what's usually like your talking track, or what do you usually?
Yeah. So So stormwater and environmental compliance, as well as public relations and public media.
Okay.
So yeah, a little bit different. I'm usually not on this side of the camera, so a little bit different for me. But being able to help give pointers along the way, and there's been several of them that I've helped and brought up that are now, they're directors in their own right, public works directors at other cities, assistant city managers at other cities, and so it's definitely. I think the more we promote public works and educate our staff, the more we see the willingness to accept what it is that we do and the support for what it is that we do. But yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of rambled on a little bit there.
No.
And I know you had a lot of questions in regards to education. So
no, I totally agree with you there. Like whether it's marriage or parent-child relationships, when I expound and explain and kind of give the why, they're more likely to be on board with whether it's
yes, exactly. And so one of the things that I have done with APWA is that I've chosen to be what they call a chapter leader or a leader within the organization. So I do sit, you mentioned it when we first started.
Yes.
I am the Region 7 director for APWA. So I sit on the national board.
Yeah.
And I represent Arizona, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas.
Beautiful.
And we are some big states and have a lot going on, and we're very active. We're very fortunate in our particular area. And, we like to make sure that we're always giving back.
Yeah.
And I think anytime we can promote the profession and what it is we do, highlight what we do, that it goes a long way.
Well, I know firsthand that you have two big instances where you can promote the profession with PWX. So in Texas, and then also in Arizona the year after, both under your geographic location. Tell us kind of, I guess for those who might be on the fence living in Arizona or Texas about going to a PWX, why they should come out.
Oh, having one in your backyard is a great opportunity. You'll have a lot more local attendees in regards to vendors. So being able to see equipment and being able to interact with others who maybe have used it elsewhere. And that goes for materials as well. And then, of course, the education tracks. There's a few more that are geared towards our local area and meeting other professionals locally. We tend to have, wherever we move PWX from year to year, there's a lot more attendees from local. Makes sense. Shorter travel, right? People can get away for one day and not necessarily there for the entire conference. And you'd be amazed at the connections that you can make and the help and resources that you can get at a PWX. Just myself, for example, I was recently having to look at how we do our fiber standards, our fiber installation broadband standards. I met somebody. Yeah, I met somebody at PWX in Chicago this past summer, and we were talking, and lo and behold, we're both from Texas. We had no idea. And so we were comparing stories, and afterwards we've shared back and forth, hey, this has been successful for us. I'm having some difficulty here. What have you been doing there? And just that little bit of back and forth has really cleared up and helped us when it comes to enforcing that particular discipline. Yeah.
Sure. No, and to your point, like those hallway conversations, and don't get me wrong, the presenters are great. I've presented a couple times at PWX. It's always good to sit through, what you're curious about or want to learn from. But those hallway conversations, you're standing next to somebody in line to get a burger. You're walking through the expo hall, and you're, say, hey, where you're from, what you're working on, what's your position, and you'd be surprised how far those conversations can go. Like you said, you're getting anecdotes for your fiber SOPs just by randomly running into somebody, at PWX in Chicago, which is nowhere near Texas.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd echo that, those in-person conversations, and whether it's in your local backyard or it's across the country, like try to go, And I know sometimes it's when you're younger, and when I was, first got into the industry, like you don't really have that much work, so to say. You're not that like you don't need to go to a PWX because like who's like why are you gonna go? What if you're on the private side or even on the public side? But if you
Mhm.
can like twist your boss's arm and just say, hey, I want to go because the
Yeah.
energy you get, the inspiration you get, seeing 20,000, 30,000 people, 15,000 people all marching
Mhm.
in the same direction for like flying the flag of public works will give you something to take back to your local business or your local city.
Absolutely. And we have tracks for the new professionals. So
Mm,
whether they be young professionals or someone who is new in their role, APWA does have that education
yep.
track. And so do many other organizations that support public works. And so even if you are a young employee or a new employee to your discipline, if you reach out to somebody who volunteers or maybe a mentor, they can help you write that request to go
uh,
to training,
oh
because you're right. There's not always training dollars for everybody in a
yeah,
company or everybody within a
yeah,
municipality. But if you have that passion and you're willing to put that effort into it, then it's more likely that those who are in authority will recognize that and want to help you build that, because
yeah.
you're going to be that future leader within that organization.
Right, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. What would you say is the biggest misconception about what you do or your position? Let's say you're at a dinner party, you're with your husband, and of course the question always comes up, so Kristina, what do you do? You say, well, I'm a city engineer at the city of Harker Heights in Texas. Like what
Mhm.
do you think people think when they hear that?
I think that most people believe that I'm doing all of the design work for the city. So I pick and choose exactly when and where we start every project, when that is very far from the case. I have a team of consultants that we hire for projects, and some of the utility projects aren't even city projects, but they believe any work going on in the city easements or city right of way is done by the city engineer and under my jurisdiction, and that's not always the case. And so sometimes it's a little bit of education along the way,
Yeah,
or sometimes you just grin and take it. Sometimes people just need to vent when they're telling you
for
about a
sure.
situation, and then you go back and you may go meet with that consultant or that other utility afterwards, and educate them about what's expected in our community. Yeah.
For sure. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's say you're commissioned to put up a billboard, and this billboard is in the most trafficked area of Harker Heights. What ask of your community in regards to public works would you put on this billboard?
So I think there's lots of messaging that could be done for public works. So if you're talking about our wastewater program, I would put up one that says "Do not flush the wipes." Um, Most definitely, that is one that we fight that battle all the time. Plugging up our pumps and having to deal with that, and that's a lot of manual labor to fix that problem. For our water system, it's don't over irrigate. Because people, they'll irrigate in the rain because it's set up on an automatic timer and not
Yeah, I've seen
realize it.
different.
So,
Yeah.
or they're overwatering and half of it's going out into the road versus just into their particular area. For the streets, I would say it has to do more with our construction workers. So I'm thinking, you mentioned billboard, but all of our billboards are digital here. So for the most
Right.
part now,
You get a 10
um,
flipper. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so for roads, I think that our DOT has some great messaging that they already put out, and basically it's a reminder that hey, we're working, we're parents, we're brothers, we're sisters too. Please just move over and use caution, because that is a big one when we're working in our roads. For our trash, I would say please be patient.
Patient.
Really,
Explain.
be patient. So we do not pick up our own trash here in Harker
Okay.
Heights, and we have to haul
Yep.
it off to another city down the road. And when we do that, sometimes based off the amount of trash and debris we have, it takes us longer to get through routes. So we don't always get through the entire route every day. And we receive a lot of phone calls about that. And so it's be patient. You know, we have that downtime that sometimes we can't control. Maybe there's a line at the landfill. Maybe it's we have not enough drivers because there's a flu epidemic going on. So there's always something. We're human too. Give us patience. We'll get to it. We will get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so those are our big ones that we have here. As far within my own department, I think overall with public works here in Harker Heights, we're doing a really good job with that communication. One of the photos I have outside my office is a kid that was just sitting at a table watching our guys in the street working. You know, there's a picture of a backhoe there, and he's just enjoying. I think he has grapes on the table. He's just enjoying his grapes, watching. And you know, it's that nice reminder that even when you don't think you're making a difference or an impact, you are. You know, there's always somebody out there watching, and it could be, you know, a kid who may one day end up coming to work for the city or be within our profession. So
no, I like that having a picture out front where it's that constant reminder, like, hey, A, you're being watched, and B, like, this too, that can be our future, you know. So let's go. All right, I always like to leave a space on the show for you to thank mentors that you had along your journey. And then I want you to give the Kristina Ramirez pep talk, that word of inspiration and motivation to your fellow city engineers across the nation.
So mentors along the way. I think my first one would actually be a teacher that I had in middle school, because she helped me realize my goals, that I could do more in math and science, and kind of pushed me. Miss Valdivia Escobar. She really helped push along the way. Professionally, you know, there's a lot of people to thank. I have had the opportunity as a leader within APWA to meet a lot of people who have been instrumental in our industry. Personally, I have Otto Wiederhold, Bob Wallace, and John Winkler, who got me started here in Texas. You know, if they wouldn't have given me the opportunity to be a CAD drafter or let my daughter be with me at work when my husband was deployed overseas, I don't know that I would be where I'm at. Learned a lot from watching them. And there's been others along the way, way too many to count, because I always feel like I'm taking something from every interaction I have. And so you never know when that little kernel of information or little nudge is going to push you in a direction. You know, I would not have ever thought to volunteer at the national level without someone giving me a push and saying, hey, I think you would be really good at doing this. Have you thought of? And I am constantly reminding myself to give that same little kernel or nudge to other people. And so you asked for words of wisdom to other city engineers.
No, like a word of inspiration and motivation.
Inspiration. So I would have to say is the work that you're doing matters. How you approach it, what you're doing, not only matters to the people you're interacting now, but will matter to those who are to come in your community. Because the infrastructure and the base that you are building now is something that others will learn from, develop, and take even further. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. I like it. All right, Kristina, let's say I'm coming to town and I text you ahead of time. I say, Kristina, where can I go in Harker Heights to get the best burger? Where are you going to send me?
So I would tell you, if you're coming to Harker Heights, we have some good burger places, but why not take advantage of the diversity in our community? So we're right there next to Fort Hood. So we have a lot of diverse culture and cuisine in our community. So a lot more of the Asian influence. So Vietnamese, Korean,
Yeah.
as well as Greek and some Italian, like real Italian.
Okay.
And then
Not Olive Garden. Like,
no, well, I'm not going to talk bad about any chain, but I like the mom and pop companies, right?
Understood.
And then we also have some Venezuelan food as
Okay.
well that's here. And so I would say step outside your box and try one of those.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
say your daughter pulls up to work one day. It's like, Mom, take me to lunch. I want to go to lunch. Give me your best spot. Where are you going to take her?
So I would probably take her to our Greek restaurant that we have here.
What's it
It
called?
is Acropolis.
Acropolis. Okay. Yeah.
Acropolis, yes, is our Greek restaurant here in Harker Heights, and it is definitely one that there's a little bit of everything there, and it's a nice, relaxing place to go.
Okay. All right. Well, Kristina, thanks for hopping on the podcast today. Thanks for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge. To all the listeners out there, make sure you share this with somebody who you think needs to hear it. Kristina, any final words before we get out of here?
I just like to thank you for the opportunity, Joseph, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
For sure.
Without getting these messages out there, we would just kind of be in a holding pattern, wouldn't we?
Right. For sure. All right, Kristina, thanks for hopping on the podcast. This has been the Public Works Podcast, and thank you everybody for tuning in.